The best part of Thanksgiving, hands down, are the leftovers. Seriously, when you're like a college student or you're in grad school like I am, these leftovers after Thanksgiving are the bomb, and that's all I've been eating nonstop for the last like 3 days. What's your guys' favorite Thanksgiving dish? Because mine this year was this like corn hash that was made at both Tristan's mom's side and at my dad's side, and it's so good and I cannot stop eating it, and it's almost gone and I'm very upset. So what is your guys' favorite dish that you can't live without and that you love having the leftovers for afterwards? Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Shania. So I wasn't really planning on doing a video at all this week. I was going to take a break for a little bit because I have finals starting on Monday. So I've been in the midst of studying for those, and I thought that I would just take a little break from YouTube, but I got bored and I needed a study break, so here we are, and I thought what better way to do a video than talk about the books that I read in the month of November since we are done. So out of all the books that I read in the month of November, there were a couple of 5 stars, which I was surprised by, and then quite a few 4 stars, a 3-star here and there, and then the lowest that I gave was a 2-star, which I will probably get into at some point. But I wasn't really surprised that I ended up giving a 2-star, but thankfully I didn't give any 1 stars, so that's good. And I didn't DNF any books this month, which is also really good. I felt like I was doing well, especially with the fact that I am almost done with this semester of law school, and I was able to read as many books as I did and basically procrastinate all my homework. I'm also drinking wine, but like, what's new? Alright, so I should probably stop rambling, and with that, let's just get into the video. So the first thing that I want to say is I did a November TBR this month, and I didn't stick to it at all. I mean, are you surprised? I'm not. So going off of that, I don't even remember what exactly I said I was going to read. I'm pretty sure Ninth House was on that list, like, go figure. Didn't read it, whoops. But there was one book that I did read on that list because I was so excited for it, I had to get to it. And that book was The Beautiful by Renée Ahdieh. I read this and I absolutely loved it. I mean, how good is this? We're starting off the video with a 5-star read right here. This book was exactly what I wanted. It was so good, though I did wish that there was more vampire type of stuff in it, but I can see that the vampires are being built for the next sequel, which is going to be called The Damned, which I'm really excited about. But if you guys haven't heard of this book and you haven't heard of me talk about it 1,000 different times on my channel, it's about a young girl, Celine, who basically has to escape her life, her past in Paris, and goes to the beautiful city of New Orleans, where she ends up joining a convent and is basically restricted within that convent, but really shortly after she meets Sebastian, who is basically the leader of this, I don't know, to me it was a cult, but whatever you want to call it, it's like the Lions or something, whatever. But she meets Sebastian, you know, the love interest, the good, the one that you just have to love. And there's also a serial killer going around that's basically killing all these people that are closely related to Celine and her convent. And yeah, she has to figure out who the serial killer is, and a bunch of other stuff happens, and yeah, there's vampires in it. So like, what more reason do you have to read this book? Like, vampires are coming back in YA, hells yeah. So like I said, I ended up giving The Beautiful a 5-star rating on Goodreads. I loved it so much. I was gonna do a video, like a book review on it, but I decided not to. So, or I just ran out of time. Like I said, busy schedule, law school, I don't know what else to do. So I didn't do a review on that, but I really liked it. If you guys would like a review on it, just let me know. I can do that. It's fine. The next book that I read in the month of November was Heretics Anonymous by Katie Henry. Yeah. And I loved this one. I think I gave it 5 stars. I'm pretty sure I gave it 5 stars. Nope, I gave Heretics Anonymous 4 stars. Whoops. But anyways, I love this so much. It was super funny. It gave me serious Looking for Alaska vibes. Like, not as sad though. Like, let's keep that in mind. Not as sad. But it's basically a young man who goes to He basically has to live, like, move all the time. He's not an army brat, but, like, his dad always gets promotions and they end up having to move, so they move, like, 4 different times in the last 10 years or something. And so they move again, and he ends up having to go to a private school. But it's not just any private school, it's a Catholic school. And our young protagonist here is an atheist. So you can see basically it's a recipe for a disaster right there. I mean, an atheist in a Catholic school, what's gonna go wrong? But he meets a little bit of a club, and they form, this club basically called Heretics Anonymous, which are basically people that believe in different things, not necessarily what the Catholicism tells them to do, but like other ways. They have just a different way of thinking, basically, is that. And it's a really cute book. It was hilarious. I was laughing my ass off the entire time. It's such a good, like, cute, funny, contemporary read. I definitely would recommend this, and I enjoyed it the entire way. So I know on my TBR I said I was going to finish the Arc of the Scythe series. Well, I didn't. So, sue me. But don't. But anyways, I have Thunderhead right here. Didn't finish it. I didn't DNF it though. I'm still working on it, so don't attack me for that. But I'm like, I don't know, 150 pages in, 180, not very far. So yeah, but I did buy the toll. So I have it there, and I'm looking at it all the time, so it's motivation for me, basically. But like, have you guys seen how big the toll is? Like, that sucker's thick. So the next book, well, it's not the next book, but a book that I read in November, which if you guys watched my book review on this book, then you know that I read it already in November. But, and obviously, I also obviously read it in November because it came out in November. But whatever. I read The Queen of Nothing by Holly Black, the last book to the Folk of the Air series, and yeah, I gave this 3 stars. I predicted that I was going to end up giving this like a 5-star. Like, this was a highly, highly anticipated book for me of the year, and I really thought it was going to be a 5-star read, but unfortunately it wasn't. It was a 3-star read, and honestly, I gave it a 3-star, but I was really leaning towards that 2-star. But there were some certain things that made me go up another level, basically. But anyways, if you guys haven't heard the Folk of the Air series, like, where you been? Pick it up. Like, even though I didn't like it as much, you should still read it, because it's good YA right there. But anyways, yeah, this one was a disappointment to me. I was lacking in a lot of ways, and I was disappointed. So 3-star read right here. I'm not really going to give away any spoilers. If you haven't heard this series, I don't know where you've been. Here it is. Go read it. Alright, so all 3 of those books that I read this month, they're not the only ones that I read, but those are the 3 that I read that were appropriate, like young adult appropriate. They weren't new adult. So yeah, all the rest of the books I read this month were smut books, and I loved it. Every now and then I get into a reading, like, frenzy, I want to call it, where I basically want to read a certain genre, like, over and over. Like, earlier this year I was in the fantasy, like, frenzy, basically. I was reading a lot of fantasy books, like, back to back to back. And this month, I read a lot of smut books, back to back to back. A lot of new adult books, and I was not disappointed. I loved every minute of it. Yeah, yep, I read a lot of smut. So, the very first book that I read in my little smut marathon, smuntathon, yeah. The first book that I read was Punk 57 by Penelope Douglas. And I read a lot of Penelope Douglas, so bear with me here. But the first one that I read was Punk 57. And oh my god, I loved it. I loved it so much. I ended up giving Punk 57 5 stars. Because it was so good. And now, when it comes to smut and, like, new adult, most of the time I think it's, like, basically a lot of sex with no plot. That's how I see it. I know, it's mean, it's rude. But this one had a lot of plot and a lot of delicious sex. So it was basically just, like, the 2 best things combined. I loved it, every second of it. If you haven't heard of Punk 57, it's basically about a girl and a guy. We have Misha and we have... oh god, it's not important. Basically, all we care about is Misha. Oh, Ryan. Her name's Ryan. Okay, so Misha and Ryan, they're pen pals in 5th grade. But even though that they're only required to be pen pals for that year of their life, they decide to keep doing the pen pals throughout their high school career. And they become really close through this, like, relationship that they have, but they've never met each other, even though they live only, like, a town apart. They just made an agreement that they would never see each other. They would only talk to each other through their letters. And, of course, we know how that's going to turn out. So, I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. It was great. So, Penelope Douglas does this thing at the beginning of her books, which is really cool, and I really love it. Is basically she has a playlist at the beginning of her books that you can listen to throughout reading the book, basically. Or, like, a lot of times when you're reading it, there'll be a scene and the character will be like, well, this song was playing in the background. And then you go and listen to it. So it was really cool. I liked how she had that playlist at the beginning of the book. And then, more importantly, she had her dedication, like, it wasn't even her dedication. It was just a quote, basically, at the beginning of the book before you start it. And it was a Breakfast Club quote. Oh, I loved it so much because I loved the Breakfast Club. Did I say that I love Misha? Because, yeah. Attractive much. I never knew that I would be physically attracted to a guy with a lip ring, but here we are, and I'm obsessed. So the next, like, book that I read, basically, in the smut genre, was actually a series, and it was a series that I've always wanted to read because of, basically, the plot of it, or how it was set up. And that was the Rhapsodic series. I guess it's also called the Bargainer series. Yeah, I liked it, but I didn't. And the reason that I really wanted to read this series was because it was so closely related to A Court of Mist and Fury, specifically A Court of Mist and Fury. And you guys know how I love me, my Court of Mist and Fury. That's my baby up there, like I said before. And so when I heard that there was this series about basically this guy called the Bargainer, who is also the king of the night and has wings and is basically death incarnate, and there's a girl that he makes a bargain with and they fall in love. Yeah, I mean, it's basically the same thing. But, of course, A Court of Mist and Fury is like 10 times better. 10 times better. So much better. I thought that the first one, Rhapsodic, was really good. I liked how it had 2 different timelines. It was going back and forth from like 7 years in the past to the present, and basically like building that relationship and getting to understand the Bargainer and the main character, who also has like siren powers, like she is half not human. I suppose I should mention, I gave the first one, Rhapsodic, 3 stars, the second one, A Strange Hymn, I think, 2 stars, and then I gave the very last one, don't remember what it was called, here's a picture, I gave that 3 stars. So, there's my rating for you guys. The next book that I read is another Penelope Douglas book, and that is Birthday Girl. It is a morally questionable book, you guys, just so you know going into it. It's very questionable, and it really pushes the boundaries that you're not prepared for. If you guys haven't heard of Birthday Girl, it is about a young girl who's 19, by the way, and she ends up falling for her boyfriend's dad, who's like 38, something like that. So yeah, there's an age gap in there. But it's more questionable because it's her boyfriend's dad. But I did like it. I did. Again, Penelope Douglas did the thing where she had the playlist at the beginning of the book, and then she had a Breakfast Club quote at the beginning as well, and so I enjoyed that a lot. It was one that I wasn't prepared for because I've never really, like, when I've read books and, you know, there's always the love interest, I never had to really picture someone that was older. Usually, you know, they're like the same age or a year or 2 older than the protagonist. So it was kind of different for me that I had to picture someone older that was very attractive. I wasn't ready for that. And it was just interesting to me. And it was very hard for me to, like, because when I read books, and I don't know if you guys have this too, I love to put myself into the protagonist or the girl or whoever it is. I like putting myself in their shoes when it comes to the love interest because, you know, I just want to be a part of that, you know? And so when I have a book boyfriend, it's usually because I feel like they're swooning me. But it was very hard for me in this book to put myself in those shoes because, like, yeah, that's like me going after my boyfriend's dad. And it's really weird. It's a weird topic to talk about. But the book was pretty good. Like, I'll give it that. Like, Penelope Douglas did a really good job of, like, handling a really complex situation and writing it in a way that made you really fall in love with both characters, if not all the characters. And I ended up giving it 3 stars just for that. Otherwise, it was a little bit difficult for me to read, but I did enjoy it because Penelope Douglas is just a really, really good new adult writer. So the next book that I read was Vicious by LJ Shen. I loved this book, you guys. I ended up giving it 5 stars. And it's very similar to how Penelope Douglas does her books too. LJ Shen also included a playlist at the beginning, and there was basically a very dark group of guys that, like, were badasses. Nobody really wanted to mess with them, but the one that they didn't want to mess with the most was Vicious, which is a nickname for him. His real name is like Baron. It really was appropriate for him, that nickname. I loved Vicious. I really did. He was a complete asshole. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, there's probably some serious problems with this book and with this relationship. Like, he was messed up. He said things that were messed up. I mean, he bullied her, like, for the beginning of her life. That's what I'm attracted to, is the bad boy type, and Vicious did it really well. I really thought their relationship was really cute, and how it was handled. It was fun, it was, like, entertaining, and it was sexy. So, what more could you want? And, yeah, I enjoyed it so much that I gave it 5 stars. Alright, let's go into my next smutty read, which was Corrupt by Penelope Douglas. So this book was, like, not good. This was the one that I gave a 2-star rating to because I did not like it. I felt like the plot was really lacking. I was really disappointed because I really liked the other 2 books that I read by Penelope Douglas, so I felt like this one just wasn't that great, and I couldn't get into it. I didn't like Michael, for one. He just was not great. I didn't like the way that he, like, his possessiveness and his, like, overall arrogance and assholeness was not as good as Vicious's from LJ Shen. His was like, I could not get into it. He wasn't great. There wasn't really any chemistry, I felt, between him and our protagonist. Like, I felt like, yeah, maybe they did have some, but I wasn't really vibing with it. It's borderline erotica. Like, it's not even smut anymore. It's, like, pure erotica. There's one scene in this book that I was not prepared for. And I was like, whoa. And I personally don't know if I don't know if I liked it or not. So, yeah, I just felt like it was really lacking on a lot of ways, and I gave it 2 stars. So the next smut book I read is following the same theme. Basically, I read a lot of books that were very similar to each other, and I don't even care. So the book that I read was Irresistible by Melanie Harlow. It's about a dad and a younger girl. I have no variety in what I read. We like what we like, and here we are. So, it's about a dad. But it's a little bit better because the main girl is 27 years old and the guy is 37. So there's a 10-year age gap. Still an age gap, I know. The guy is a dad. He has 3 little girls. I was getting hardcore vibes from, like, Despicable Me, you know, single dad, 3 little girls that are adorable and you can't help but love them. So it was a really cute story. Again, it was done really well. It was both very adorable, very funny, and very sexy all in one. And I thought it was very appropriate, showing, like, the struggles that single parents have. I felt that that was very appropriate in how Melanie Harlow did that, as well as, like, the struggles in finding relationships when you are a single parent and how it can really impact your kids and how at the same time you need to balance your needs and your kids' needs. I really enjoyed it, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars because it was a pretty short read for me, but I really liked it a lot. So the last and final book that I read this month, which is also another smut book, sorry guys, it was Drive Me Wild by Julie Kriss. And I just finished this one like an hour ago. It was a very, very short read. Like, I started it this morning and I read it in like an hour. It was very short, but it was very, very good. It's about a girl who basically, it's set up very much the same as the other ones. Like, all these are very similar. But this, there's a group of 4 brothers that are basically born on the wrong side of the tracks. Literally, born on the wrong side of the tracks. They are bad boys, they grew up rough, they grew up poor, and the main girl, Emily, is the town's cop's daughter. Like, the sergeant of the police force. Her daughter is Emily. And so she's basically a goody two-shoes girl, and she of course falls for the bad boy Luke, one of the brothers, and they have to keep their relationship a secret, and they start this relationship when they're 18. Emily wants to go off and be an adult and wants to go to college and get a degree, but it's not in the cards for Luke because he grew up poor and he's not able to go to college because he can't afford it. So he decides that he wants to just go travel and see if he can find himself. So he gets in his car and drives and travels for the next 8 years while Emily is getting her degree. Of course, as fate would have it, they both end up having to come back to the town where they grew up, and they meet each other again, and they pick up where they left off. So it was really good. I really enjoyed it a lot. I read through it super fast. Like I said, it was super short. It was like 180 pages, like a very short read. And it is a series where it goes through each of the brothers. With this one by Julie Kriss, I probably will continue the series because I really liked it, and the brothers all seem very intriguing to me, and I really want to know how their lives end up. So yeah, I enjoyed it a lot, and I ended up giving this one 5 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars? I ended up giving it 4 stars. So like I said, those are all the books that I read, and I didn't stick to my TBR at all. I read 2 books. The Queen of Nothing and The Beautiful from my TBR that I said I was going to read this month, and that was it. That is all for today's video. If you guys want to follow me on my social media, please do so. I will have it linked down below as always. But other than that, I will see you guys next time. Bye!